Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Today's the 10th of July already. Wow. 10th of July. And it's almost 8 o'clock in the morning here in Israel, the not so holy, holy land. And we're going to talk about the latest developments with the Iran war. There were more attacks yesterday. I think they were like in the early evening, Middle East time. Early night, I should say. I'll go through what happened. And Jordan got a big attack, 10 missiles. And somebody has been attacking Iran, which is not Israel and it's not America. So we don't think it's Jamaica or the Cayman Islands. So it would likely be the Arab states, and the Iranians are pinning the tail on the donkey of 2 Arab states. We'll go through that with you. It looks real, and we'll discuss the targets to hit, and then we're going to discuss Trump gearing up for a much longer war and what it appears his goals are and why his goals are flawed, and what the Iranians are going to do to change Trump's mind by force into becoming something he doesn't want it to become, but it's headed there. Again, you got to understand the Middle East, or none of this makes sense, okay? Because the Iranians are not behaving logically according to the way Europe thinks, according to the way North and South America think, and according to the way most of Asia thinks. And I don't know much about Africa, but I doubt that African people think like them unless they're Muslim states. So we're going to dig into it, and then we're going to do a nice translation, which is already done, for Mark chapters 15 and 16. And I think you'll enjoy the translation. It looks pretty good today. All right, I'm going to go into the live stream. I'm going to be translating from the Hebrew New Testament that was Salkinson's and Delitzsch's. That's 2 of them. We're going to translate from both of them and use both of them to put the pieces of the translation together and try to understand it better. Wordsmith, good to see you again. Glad you're here. Wordsmith, good to see you again. Glad you're here. All right, I'm going to put up a post, which is likely going to take seconds, but if I talk too much, I'll just create typos. Almost done. Just typo checking. We'll pin it up. Whoops. I hit a delete key. Darn it. Alright. I gotta figure out how to get rid of this. Not good. Let me see. I can't amend it, I don't think. I just gotta dump it. Let's try again. Remove finally. Okay. Oh, yeah, I got rid of it. Alright, sorry, I gotta do it one more time. Apologize. I better just be quiet and concentrate, or I'm gonna have issues with it. Okay, I'll just pin this up and we'll get out of here. Make sure it goes. Okay, done with that. Being a Bible believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Now I'll do a quick prayer for us. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for a good broadcast today. Good translations or excellent translations and the true meaning of the word can be conveyed to the people in a way they will understand it. And I pray we understand what's going on in the world, what the nations are doing, and how you're fulfilling prophecy. And the broadcast comes out good. We have no technical issues, honest or dishonest ones, let's call it that. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, now we have one prayer request, which is, of course, rather important to the person. It's not a prayer request, it's a toss request. Okay, so let's give a toss to AC and MC. I'll do the toss and you can agree with it. Even if it's a video, agree with it. Okay. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I command you unclean spirits to depart from these people, AC, Alpha Charlie, and MC, Mother Charlie. Depart from these people immediately, never return unto them again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that. And I cancel any witchcraft or sorcery, spells, enchantments ever made by AC, Alpha Charlie, and or MC, Mother Charlie, of any sort. All such evil spiritual warfare is cast null and void, of no value, no effect forever. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that. Okay, took care of that. So we'll put the pieces together about what happened yesterday. It's kind of weird, okay? It's not like the previous 2 days. We hit 80 targets, we hit 100 targets. That was rather big. This is kind of obfuscated. It's like weird. Trying to get the pieces put together as to what really happened is a little challenging, but I think we got a good handle on it. Okay. Apparently America hit near near an Iranian nuclear site, and they also hit a railroad or a railway, some component in the railroad that actually did get hit and shut down that railroad. Okay? So then what happened is Iran went out and hit Kuwait and Bahrain, apparently as a retaliation for what America did. Now, were they hitting the American bases in Kuwait and Bahrain? I'm not sure. Likely they were, but I'm not sure. Okay? And then a short time after that, but it was probably in the hours, the Iranians fired 10 missiles at Jordan. I'm rather certain they were trying to hit the big military base America has in Jordan. This is what I've been piecing together. But Iran said that Kuwait and Bahrain hit or attacked in eastern Iran. Um, Iran sources were stating that the launch of missiles from the city of Khomeini, Iran, go figure these pronunciations, towards the Muwafaq Sahi base in Jordan. That was the base. Okay. There were attacks in East Iran, and America said they didn't do it. Israel came out and said they didn't do it. Believe me, they didn't do it. And if America did it, they'd say they did it. What do they care? Um, so it could be Qatar, it could be Kuwait, it could be Bahrain, it could be the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Apparently, Iran's pinning the tail on the donkey belonging to Kuwait and Bahrain. So they are probably the likely suspects on this. Good for them. See, the Iranians are not Arabs. They are Muslims, but they're not Arabs. And these Gulf states are Arabs. So you've got, number one, a language barrier. The Iranians speak Farsi, and the Arabs speak Arabic. And along with that comes some cultural differences and stuff like that. So it's not very hard for me to imagine the Arabs attacking the Iranians. They're Persians, they're not Arabs. The U.S. strikes were near the Bushehr nuclear plant. I don't know why they didn't actually hit the nuclear plant. They were hitting nearby. I'm unclear as to what was going on there. There were very likely there was anti-aircraft missiles there or some other stuff, radar, that the Americans wanted to peel away their defense mechanism. So at a later date, they could go in and carpet bomb the place or something. Now, I'm also picking up reports that Iran during the night last night also was firing not only at Kuwait and Bahrain, but also Qatar, drones and missiles, which is their standard operating procedure. And as some of you probably are aware, the Ukrainians and the Russians are knocking each other's lights out. Zelensky of Ukraine just goes and attacks Moscow routinely now. I think in the last several days, four or maybe more Russian oil refineries have been hit. So Zelensky's getting orders to dismantle the Russian oil, or he might be doing it himself. I don't know. One of their substantial oil refineries was on fire after last night's episodes. People were thinking that when there were attacks in Iran last night, that it was America retaliating against Iran for the 10 missile attack on Jordan, and the Americans said they did not do it. The 10 missile attack on Jordan wasn't enough, apparently, for the Americans to gear up and start doing attacks. So this is what, Trump does. He goes slow at this, okay? He's very wrong. Once you start attacking, you don't stop. There's right now estimated 20 U.S. Navy ships in the region. So if we break it down, you've got the aircraft carriers, and they're with their escorts. There are 8, and the Boxer's not back yet. I don't know. It must be other destroyers. It could be mine sweepers, missile ships, submarines. I'm not sure. But he's got enough naval firepower. They could launch missiles, these destroyers. They have 16 tubes. So that's, you can fire 16 tubes in I don't know, a few minutes. And that's going to get you a desired effect, It's a lot of missiles. Right now, the shipping in the Persian Gulf is 0. That means they're not shipping mushrooms or sweaters or sandals or tomatoes or steak or anything. Okay, through the Persian Gulf. There's nothing moving. All right. What is thought is going on here? Is Trump is gearing up for a substantial attack. Now, we don't know a lot. Let me talk about what we don't know. We don't know if this substantial attack is 24, 48, 72, 96 hours, 1 to 4 days. Trump likes stuff like that. He doesn't have the stomach to stay in a big fight. So it could be a large attack for a few days. And people are also saying that we don't know, and it could be for a month or 2 or something like that, okay? I think if the attack was for a day or 2, well, he's already done that twice, so I don't think he needs to gear up with a lot of armament to run another attack for a day or 2. The theory, which I think they're good. In other words, theory is not what's the best thing to do. It's analyzing what's going on and coming up with a conclusion or a speculation as to what is thought Trump is going to do. Okay? And the thought, which I agree with, Trump is trying to strip Iran of military assets, not people, military assets, to prevent them from having a chance, or, we could say they don't even have a prayer to be able to control the Persian Gulf. They have nothing to work with. That means what? Well, we'll go through it, okay? It means you've got to get rid of the radar they have, because the radar helps them detect ships, which they then attack. So all the radar that can work in the Persian Gulf has to be gone. And we don't know how much of this junk they've got, okay? I mean, you could send drones and planes and add it up, I guess they're doing that. Okay, and they got to get the location of these radar. Radar is generally not going to be mobile. Now, they got mobile radar for a different purpose. That's when they're launching missiles, but they got to get that too. In other words, they're going to blind Iran from seeing what's going on in the Persian Gulf. The only way the Iranians are going to be able to tell anything is to sit there with strong binoculars. But how strong can you get? 12 tower maybe? And those are binoculars like this, the things that they used in World War II. And how far would you go? Well, I don't know. First of all, it's not going to work in the dark. Well, maybe they could get night optics, but not at that high of magnification, I don't think. Maybe it would work, I don't know. But I would say they're at most 5 miles. And could they actually identify the ship at 5 miles? I don't know. They might be able to see a ship, but they're not going to be able to get the call sign of the ship to address the ship. Okay. So if they're taking the Oman route, they're way the heck more than 5 miles away. They're probably around 100 miles or something like that. So, the binoculars have no chance, okay? Can they send surveillance aircraft up? Well, if they had any, they could. I don't believe they have any. And if they did have some, ancient civilian, 4 or 8-seater propeller plane flying around, the American warships would see it, tell it to get out of the area, or they're going to blow it out of the sky, and they would probably just wind up blowing it out of the sky. Because they know it's up to no good. They know it's there for not a good reason. Okay? It's not there to be nice. Okay? Now let's continue. What else got to go? Regular Navy boats, Trump got rid of them. Regular aircraft, there's nothing to worry about. So then what are you down to? Well, one of your big problems is your go-fast boats. And they're in caves in the water. You've seen it in movies lots of times, where the coastline is, there's openings, and the water goes in, and the tide goes up and down and stuff. Okay. So a go-fast boat is probably in the vicinity of 50 to 70 or 80 feet. And they got different ones. They're commercial vessels, pleasure boats for people to buy that are on the higher end. And they've been converted to military purposes, okay? And these caves have been fortified hard. So you're going to have a very hard time getting to them. Now, if you put Navy SEALs in the water with some sort of weapons, which is pretty illogical, they could do it, but I don't believe you'll ever see that happen. It's too dangerous for this Navy SEALs, It's not going to do that. So they, at the start of this thing, we don't know, they had someplace between 1,500 and 3,000 go-fast boats, okay? So let's just say 2,000. Let's be conservative. It's probably more, and they lost maybe 500 or 600. So they probably have over 1,000 go-fast boats, okay? And to attack a tanker ship, you're probably going to send 3 of the boats, 4 of the boats, that's all. You don't have to send a large amount, okay? And they have a heavy gun mounted on the boat, which probably is a 50 cal or a 20 millimeter type gun, and type gun, I said, and they can spray rounds at the conning tower, or whatever you want to call it, the tower where the people running the ship are. Usually it's about 5 or 6 story thing. Looks like a small apartment house built on the deck of the boat. Okay? This could be a container boat, an oil tanker, grain ship, whatever, right? They have an area at one end of the boat, usually the rear, and they put the building up over there, and it has 5 or 6 floors typically, and they have an area where the captain runs the ship. They have another area where the navigator, which may be with the captain or they have an engineer that works on the motor and the hydraulics. Another one works on communications and radar, right? They might have 2 of each. And they got people that are responsible for fire control and safety and all of that stuff. Okay? And then they have general laborers that, do various duties on the boat, maintenance, cleaning, things like that. And they have cabins there on the boat where they don't live in a tiny area like a cruise ship. They got plenty of room. They live in an area more like a 1-bedroom apartment, okay? Something like an apartment, They have it would be like a very large suite on a cruise ship, but they don't get a balcony, of course. And I imagine they have to clean their own room. As far as I know, that's how it works. There might be some boats where they have a janitor that cleans the rooms, but I have not heard about that. They have a cook who prepares food, and they put it out, and they go take it off a table. So it's a small buffet. They probably have 2 or 3 mains and 4 or 5 vegetables, or maybe less, and some salad and dessert. It's not a big spread at all. Usually the food is pretty good. They like the food. I don't know if they have access to alcohol. I doubt it. What else can I tell you? They got a rec room up there where they got entertainment. They got a lounge. They got TV. They got internet. They can play computer games. Different stuff going on up there, right? So that's not hard. That's where the guys are. So they want to get the boat. They drive by, and they make announcements to them on the radio, and they run circles around the ship and get them scared, and they still won't scare. Then they take the boat and they aim it. They probably parallel the tanker, and they aim the gun at the tower, and they go, put 20, 30 rounds in the tower. They're going to make holes in the metal. They're going to break windows, probably. And now they don't use regular household window glass on these ships. They use something more like a hurricane level glass that's going to sustain high winds and the force of the water from waves, but waves aren't really going to get up that high. But they have a reasonably strong window. But when you're shooting a 50 cal or a 20 millimeter, no, those kind of windows are going to be about that thick. And their windows are probably more like about that thick. They got tough windows for regular problems, not bullets, I never heard of the IRGC coming to these ships and trying to board them against the will of the people driving the ship like the pirates do. That doesn't happen. So that's how the Iranians really stop a ship, board a ship. But what they do now is they attack the ship. they can attack the ship. These go-fast boats have what's called a anti-ship missile installed on them with a launcher. Now, some of these things can be shoulder fired, some of them have a launcher. And they hit the boats with launcher run, anti-ship missiles, which causes a nice fire typically, not, I should say a not nice fire, a dangerous fire. One of the biggest fears the people on the ship have is fire. Now, of course, in peacetime they don't, have fears of getting hit by missiles, but they also have a fear of getting hit by a missile. Getting hit by a missile is no fun. Okay, people near the blast are going to get killed and wounded. If they're near the blast, then you're going to have damage to the ship. All kinds of varying degrees, from dead in the water to nothing to being on fire. They could get the fire put out, they could not get it put out. Who knows? It could be anything, okay? The guys on the boat have emergency lifeboats they could lower in the water and survive if they get enough notice. For Iran to hit the ship from the shore, they need to have radar. They need to have the missile launches on the coastline with the radar on the coastline, so they could identify targets, contact them by radio, and then fire missiles at them. Generally, the anti-ship missiles don't go long distances, So how is America going to shut this down? What the Iranians told America is that Iran is going to be controlling the Persian Gulf, and that's it. And if America wants to start messing with them, they're going to be sorry. America will be sorry. Israel's not in this fracas right now. So Trump is trying to get listen, this is what Trump's trying to do. It's not right, but he's trying to do it. He's trying to get the oil moving again. It's not moving now. It's about 25% of the world's oil. It's not moving. Plus you got LNG, that's also not moving. Nothing's moving. So Trump wants to keep the Persian Gulf open. Iran doesn't want it open. So Trump has to take away Iran's assets, military assets that they're using to close the Persian Gulf. And I don't know how Trump's going to open it. One way I could think, I don't know. Look, ships don't want to go through there I don't know how Trump's going to get the go fast boats. Nobody has a great solution for that, except wait for the go fast boats to come out and do their dirty deed. And while they're out in open seas, send the warthogs out, and they got the 30 millimeter Gatling gun in the front, and it goes over 3,000 rounds a minute. They just sit there and go, blah! You know, in 8 or 12 rounds, it is 1 pound projectiles. It's almost an artillery piece, you know, not quite. Hit the boat and rip the boat up, and they will rip the boat up. They'll rip the guys up, they'll kill the guys a lot of times, and they'll cause explosions and fires, and that's it for the boat. I mean, that'll take months. They got so many of the boats, and the problem is, during this process, who's going to want to run their ship through there? When the Iranians come out to attack them, they're going to have to sit there and say, well, we're taking our lives in our hand, hoping Trump's soldiers don't get overloaded or don't change their mind. And, you know, they're not going to go through the Persian Gulf. So Trump's idea is strip Iran of all their power to control the Persian Gulf, open the Persian Gulf, and forget about Iran. Sanctions stay in place, military stays there, and just wait for Iran to die economically, okay? Because the American warships are going to remain and not let Iran sell oil. And if Iran ain't selling oil, that's it. It's never going to go down that way. Never. While Trump is playing this game, the Iranians are hitting Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, UAE, they'll hit Oman, they'll hit Jordan, they'll hit Saudi Arabia, and blow the oil up. Right now they're focusing on the American bases. They want the American bases gone. Does that stop Trump from attacking them? No. Does it make it harder? Yes. Yes, it makes it harder. Much greater distances come to bear there. Okay? So what the Iranians are going to tell Trump, hey, sucker, you're fighting with us over controlling the Persian Gulf. We just blew all the oil wells and refineries up in the Persian Gulf oil producing countries. And heck, you can have the Persian Gulf now. You want to stop people from importing sandals and hats and tables, go ahead. You know, no oil going. To stop that, Trump has to shut the missile cities down. And I don't know how many mobile missile launchers they have now, but I would guess it's about 200. And they hide them in the ground or in a building or someplace. And when they want to use them, they come out, they launch, and then they disappear again, usually underground. So it looks like Iran has capability to attack these states, these Arab states. And now it looks like the Arab states are aware of what's going on, and they're attacking Iran. I think we very likely could see Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia attacking Iran. That's a big load for Iran to carry. And what is America going to do? They'll attack too, or if they're not attacking, which I doubt, what they'll do is provide the intel and the target packaging to these other Arab states. They'll even supply the weapons, so I'm pretty sure America will get in on it. And it looks like Israel won't. These Arab states will find it hard enough to fight the war with the infidels, America. But fighting the war with the Jews, I think, will be too much for them. They won't do it. So Israel just sits back. If Iran attacks Israel with 2 or 3 missiles, Netanyahu is likely going to drop hundreds of bombs for that one attack. Okay. Netanyahu understands how to talk to the Iranians. Boom, boom, boom. Heavy crushing blows. That is sign language that they understand. That's all they understand. They're morons. Okay? So Trump is trying to do this partially, and he can't. His big mistake was when he was attacking for 2 weeks. He should have stayed with it even if it took 6 or 8 weeks. And he would have disabled the missile cities, then he had them. Now he's got to start all over again, is that correct? No. It's worse than starting all over again because they over-fortified their missile cities and other critical war infrastructure. At Khomeini's funeral yesterday, I believe it was some type of IRG, some type of Iranian police or militia guys shot the funeral up and some people got killed. I don't have any deep knowledge as to why or who or why, but it's just a curious thing. So I think the mourning period for this jerk Khomeini might be over. Let's see, that's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today's the last day. After today, they're probably going to work on their revenge. Netanyahu gave some intel to the Americans, warning them of a new assassination plan to kill Trump. We were not told what it is. When Trump got back from that NATO stuff, he was in meetings and briefings, I believe, yesterday for a long time. And that was about Iran. So that's one reason why they weren't attacking. He was in meetings and he's scared, is what it is. He's going to have trouble with China. Why? China got spoiled the last week or 10 days. They were getting a lot of oil from Iran at sweetheart pricing. Okay? No more. At the same time, Trump is trying to break Iran financially. So a few days ago, he's releasing sanction money to them in the billions. He's letting them sell millions and millions of dollars of oil every day to China. And now he wants to choke them. See, he doesn't understand what he's doing. You need a plan. Iran is trying to drive America out of the Middle East. That's why they're hitting heavily on the bases. And that's why they keep threatening Trump. They want him and his military out of the Middle East. The bases are getting demolished, by the way. And they keep working on Kuwait and Bahrain bases, so there's a side feature to this that most people don't understand. Why are the American bases put there? Why do they put 5,000 soldiers in Kuwait? To protect that garbage dictator? Yeah, that's why. They're trying to keep Kuwait stable. If there's like a Muslim Brotherhood movement or something to overthrow the king of Kuwait, or he calls himself Emir, E-M-I-R. Look, Emir, Sultan, President, self-appointed. That's just another title for dictator. King, that's all just dictators, Prince, whatever, dictator. They, the Kuwaitis it has that base there to protect some kind of an overthrow of the government. Kuwait doesn't have much military. They have much money. All right, so what happens to these? What happens to these soldiers in Kuwait? Well, they keep Iranian keeps bombing them with drones and missiles. What happens? Well, if there's an air base, which is likely, airport, runways and stuff, they don't exist anymore, along with the control tower doesn't exist anymore. The radar doesn't exist anymore. The roads are damaged, buildings and structures are damaged, fences are blown up. Nothing. So let's work this through. Then Trump can't keep the soldiers in Kuwait. They may not be there anymore now. He can't keep aircraft there. Their anti-missile defense systems, the Patriots, get bombed. So the place turns into a parking lot, okay? And I think we're just about there. We're not there yet because they're continuing to attack it. But you know, in the beginning, they were attacking the UAE heavily, and now they don't bother attacking the American bases in the UAE that much anymore because they already got them, I suppose. Now they're starting to get the Jordan base. And they're getting the Bahrain has the naval headquarters for America is in Bahrain. You get it to no radar, no comms, no this, no that. The port's all messed up. You know, that's over with. The only one they might leave alone is Oman, but in the past they did hit Oman too. So the Saudis they've been hitting, you know. So you know they could march into Kuwait, the Iranians, and they could occupy Kuwait. Yeah. You get rid of the American base, which they're doing. The American soldiers aren't there. Now, what happens when the American soldiers are there? What would happen? Well, they would have a small amount of tanks. Maybe 10 or 12, right? They're not going to have 100. You know, they might have even less. They have some, so they could put tanks to protect government buildings like the palaces or protect airports and stuff like that. All right. Maybe they got 15. I don't know how many. They don't have a lot. They don't have 100 or anything like that. Okay. Armored personnel carriers, they'll have some of those. Armored Humvees, plenty of those. Okay. They're, you know, getting them out of there. The Kuwait military by itself is really there to protect the royal family and their assets and the oil fields from being attacked internally. That's all. At the same time, they keep the peace. They stopped armed robberies, they stopped assaults, burglary, car theft, carjacking, narcotics. You know, they stopped that stuff too. You know, the emir is immune from laws. He doesn't pay taxes. You can't sue him. And you can't put him in jail. That's how all these dictators are. They don't answer to the people at all. All right. Iran could easily send a small amount of soldiers, you know, I don't know, 15, 20,000, and occupy Kuwait. We've never seen them do anything like that, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't. They probably won't do it as long as America's in the Middle East, but if they could drive America out, they could take over Kuwait, then they could get Qatar and then Bahrain and just work their way down and getting everybody. And now they're controlling the Middle East oil in a very serious way. And then Trump is going to fight to keep a blockade going. But, I don't know how well Trump will do. He doesn't do too great with their blockade effort. Now, don't think that Iran's not building new weapons while all this is going on, because they are. They're making drones, they're making missiles, they're improving missiles, Radar's a problem. They got to get that from China. And they did that, and then it gets blown up. So what do? I don't know. Get more radar, and then it gets blown up again. I don't know what they can do. The only way to really solve this is, get rid of their railroads, all of them. Get rid of their ports and their piers that are used to offload the oil, all of them. Okay? And then pause and say, do you want to talk? You don't say talk, you say, do you want to surrender unconditionally? But we'll be nice to you. No. Then what you got to do next is you break their grid. You take their whole grid out. You want to surrender? No. Then you take their water out, and that's the end of it. Then the people have to leave Iran. And that's the fulfillment of the prophecy in Jeremiah 49, starting in verse 34. And that's it. The IRGC and the other jerks could sit there. But what are they going to do? The people left, they got a dead country. What are they going to do? What are they going to fight for? That's the real answer. And Trump's heard it from the generals, but he just doesn't execute it. So I don't know what's going to happen with Trump. Trump may be the one to take down Iran, or Iran may assassinate him. They may cause a lot of damage in America. I don't know. That's really what we got over here. So we're watching what happens. And Netanyahu's sitting this one out. He's voraciously hitting Hezbollah. He's going after the tunnels, which is good because they hide underground. And they store weapons, missiles, and drones and stuff inside tunnels. And without the tunnels, well, they're in bad shape. I'll be reporting on movement of some cargo ships to the Middle East, which will mean Trump is scaling up. But he might already have this stuff over here. It ain't gonna work. His fairyland is, well, we'll force the Persian Gulf to be open, but they won't be able to use it, and they'll settle with us. Yeah. Not gonna work. Trump says he thinks Israel will withdraw from Lebanon soon. Our Defense Secretary, Katz, says we did not ask anyone's permission to enter Lebanon, and we need no one's permission to leave. So Israel's saying we can stay in Lebanon as long as we want. And now that the war thing and the memorandum of understanding and the ceasefire, all that stuff, Iran said it's over, Trump said it's over. Israel has no restraints on it, you know. Um, they can make all the deals they want with the country of Lebanon, but as long as Hezbollah is functional, nothing's going to happen except us keep attacking until they're gone. This is interesting. The new Arab League chief says he was blocked by Israel from visiting the West Bank. They wouldn't let him in. Well, we didn't want him to create any intel connections or anything over there. Jeb Bush is raising the alarm about the risk of drones in Cuba. Okay, and he said a newspaper said there were 300 Iranian drones in Cuba. 300. Do they really have 300? Well, if they really did, and this Israelite kid knew it, well, you know, the newspaper guy doesn't really know what there's 300 drones. That's the problem. That's why Jeb Bush said, that's the former governor of Florida, that's why he said, well, the newspaper said 300 drones. So, you know, I don't know what's going on. But he's probably detecting something threatening. And he's the former governor of Florida. I guess he lives in Florida. I don't know. And he's probably worried. The revenge with Iran won't happen until the 7 days of mourning for the dead Shmuel Khomeini, and that's over tonight. So attacks could kick in, you know, tonight or Saturday or Sunday. I'm thinking next week sometime. They're going to take a few days. Okay. Iran says the only way the Persian Gulf opens is if Iran, is controlling the Persian Gulf. Yeah, that's, and you got to look back at Trump with all, Iran wants a deal, they want a deal bad, we're close to the, see, this guy was only able to operate for months by lying and lying and lying and lying. That was what he resorted to because he doesn't have any other skills. Do you understand that? And the lies are so blatant, the whole world knew he was lying. He's got he doesn't have a big skill set, or he wouldn't have to go sling stupid lies and behave like a child. He was behaving like a child, which is typical for despots, by the way. Let me check the live stream. See if I got questions or anything. Things are relatively quiet in the live stream. Okay, set this off. Little reminder, we're driven by offerings, okay? Uh, okay. All right. Let's go. So now we'll, that's what we got. And what it looks like here is Trump is still not accepting the fact that he's got to wipe out Iran. And the wipeout will come with, I believe, first ports, piers, railroads, airports. Next, the grid will go out. From there, the water goes. And they're going to do that to the other Arab states too. It's going to happen to them too. And you're going to have an oil crisis like you can't believe. Trump sent troops to Venezuela to help with the, recovery from the earthquakes. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's worried about somebody doing something to the oil in Venezuela. It could happen. But the oil in Venezuela is not really pumping out yet in its fullness. American oil is. So if the Gulf states are gone and then America's oil is shot, and we know Russia's oil is really being dismantled by Ukraine. So you got the Middle East oil gone, the Russian oil is pretty much down the tubes. And if something happens to the American oil, well, now you got a major crisis in the world. Okay, and the Russian stuff's happening already. It's happened. And it's getting worse. And the Middle East stuff is basically ongoing and getting worse. And all you need is for the American oil to go. That's it. All right, let's get into the Bible work. And make sure I'm in the right place here. Oh, yes. Okay. Mark 15. I made sure we had a good translation today. Okay. Mark 15 is a large chapter. I believe 46 verses. Where did we go here? I overshot. All right. So we're doing it from Salkinson's Hebrew New Testament and the Delitzsch Hebrew New Testament, and we're translating it strictly using secular translation criteria, no churchianity, doctrines, or influences. Before we start, I need to tell you that I illustrate and illuminate very clearly and plainly, using the scriptures, the intentional errors of the churches, all of them, and the Messianic congregations, and their translations, okay? And their lack of teaching things in the Bible that are of very great importance today. So if you are the type of person that wants the truth, and wants to know what the Bible really says, you're going to love me. If you're the type of person that doesn't care what the Bible says, you're going with the church, you're going with Pastor Bob or Pastor Mary, and you're going to follow their party line, and that's it. You're going to hate me. Okay, Mark 15:1. Normally I'll start with Salkinson. Let's go. And immediately in the morning, the heads of the slaughter place, now the sacrificial area would be, where they were sacrificing animals around the temple, the slaughter place, okay, practitioners, the ones that were doing it, the Levites, I suppose, with the elders and the scribes and the entire council took counsel, and they bound Yeshua, led him away, and delivered him over to Pilate. Now remember, Yeshua was not here then to establish the kingdom. He was here to teach the good news to the poor, the downtrodden, the humble, the sick, the feeble, the blind, the leper, whatever. Teach to them, not the rich and proud Satan bots. He was here to teach them and be a sacrifice. Not to take the kingdom over. And he knew he was going to get killed. And he knew there was a double punishment coming on Israel, which is 2,000 years. He knew it. He knew it. And we're no longer in those punishment years. We're in recompenses. We started, I believe, October 10th, 2023. Recompenses. The payback to the nations for the controversy over Zion, for the fighting with God over Israel. God is not trying to run the Israelites out of Israel. He's trying to bring them in. He's trying to raise them to the head of the nations. And of course, serving him in righteousness. He's not, he says, I am for you, okay? But he also says in multiple places in the Bible, return to me and I will return to you. So what's going on here is there's a lot of stuff coming to take place in Zechariah 12. Most is where the churches don't teach this to you. And it's, boy, they're going to be in the lake of fire for that. Now you're going to hate me, but I'm telling you the truth. The leaders and the siege, and the people are going to get scared in this siege, and they're going to start crying out to God. They won't say God's name now. The rabbis have discombobulated them into thinking that they're not allowed to say the name Jehovah. And if they say the name Yeshua, they'll beat them. They think they're blotting out God's name and Yeshua's name. Boy, are they going to get it. Verse 2, and Pilate, Pilate, not a Delta Airlines pilot, okay. And Pilate questioned him, are you the king of the Judeans? It's really Melech Yehudim. Are you the king of the there's no J in the Hebrew alphabet, so it can't be Jew. Yehudim is the Jews. Judah, Jews. Remember when they had the yellow badge with Hitler that it said Yud, Yehudim, Yud. It's Jews, you could say, but it really means Judah. And he answered Pilate. It doesn't say Pilate. It says he answered and said to him, you have said it. And it's a little bit more graphic in Delich. It goes, and he answering said to him, your own words say it. he never denied being the king of the Jews, of Israel. He said, you said it. He's not agreeing with a lie. He wouldn't do that. It's true. He's the king. Now, if the king of Israel calls you his brethren, as a believer, you're going to go around and tell him, well, I'm with the church and we stand next to Israel. I'm not Israel. Well, I got news for you. All Israel shall be saved. You find me a scripture that says all the churches shall be saved, huh? You can't. Doesn't exist. 15 verse 3. And the heads of the slaughter place, the sacrifice, it's for the animal sacrifices. Well, let me read it a little clearer to you. And the heads of the slaughter place practitioners. So the top leader of the people that did the sacrifices, the Levites, accused him of many things. Verse 4. And Pilate questioned him again, saying, do you return no word? David says, do you answer nothing? Look now, many things they are witness against you. David says, see the mass of testimonies they are throwing against you. Yeshua knew that is supposed to be. He's not going to, that's the way it's supposed to be. It's going down. Verse 5. But Yeshua, the designated king, or it's not the anointed king, Mashiach, Melech, king would be Melech, or it might have actually been saying anointed. You see, they wouldn't have the word Mashiach from Messiah. Well, if it does say the word king, then it would be. See, but in Delich it says leader, so I would say that it was saying Yeshua HaMashiach is what I would say the Hebrew saying, Yeshua the Messiah, or the anointed. Still did not answer a word. That Pilate marveled greatly. Or Sawkins says astonished. See, he would have expected Yeshua to try to talk his way out of it. And he may have been able to do that. Verse 6. Now at every festival gathering, he used to release to them one bound prisoner, whomever they begged of him. Okay, so at this time, they would release the holiday, they would release one, okay? And there was a man named Barabbas, Barabba, or not us, BAR-ABBA, bound with those who made an uprising, who had committed murder in the rebellion against the Romans, that rebellion. Verse 8. And the crowd came up screaming, begging him to do as he had always done for them. And Pilate answered them, saying, is it your desire that I release to you the King of the Jews? And it would be Hamelech Yehudim. 15 verse 10, for he knew that the heads of the uh, sacrificial, the ones that did the animal sacrifices, had delivered him over out of burning envy. They didn't want him around. He knew the scriptures too good. He was healing. They couldn't heal. He was doing miracles, walking on water. They couldn't do that. He was raising the dead. They couldn't do that. 15. So that's their jealousy, okay? With their envy. Verse 11. But the heads of the slaughter place, the ones that were doing the sacrifices, stirred up the crowd that he should rather release Bar-Abba to them. In other words, instead of Yeshua. Verse 12. And Pilate answered and said to them again, what then shall I do to him whom you call the king of Yehudim, the king of the Jews? Pilate didn't want to kill the guy. He was saying the guy's talking Bible and, he's doing signs and wonders. Maybe I should leave this guy alone. I don't know what to do. Let me work with the Jews, see if I could get them to leave us. I'll just let this guy go free. I'll kick him loose, and that'll be the end of that. If that happened, not much would have ever happened to Pilate, because he doesn't know what's really going on. But it wasn't destined. This was not the restoration of the kingdom. It wasn't that Yeshua lost. He was doing exactly what he was supposed to do. This was the plan, and Satan couldn't figure this out. Satan's a schmuck supreme. You got the supreme leader in Iran. Well, Satan's a supreme schmuck. Okay, verse 13. And they screaming out, I like that. And they screamed out again, hang him upon the execution wood. Delich got it much more accurate. It says, and they roared out again. Roared is screamed. You could say screamed or roared. And they said, stake him to the timber. Okay, it wasn't this, with the arms out like that. It was like this. The arms out like that was a curse they did. Anyway, they tell you that it wasn't this because they want you to understand that they cursed God, and the schmucks, a lot of them teach, probably to the Satan bots, they teach this too, that because they killed Yeshua, God is dead because it says, me and my Father are one. Echad. That's one. Echad, Shtaim, Shalosh, 1, 2, 3, right? But it means we're in agreement. It doesn't mean we're the same person. Well, how do you explain? The Lord said to my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until, all your enemies I'll make all your enemies your footstool. Sit at my right hand until I make all your enemies your footstool. So what is he supposed to do? Sit on the right hand of himself? How do you do that? And then tell you he prayed to himself. People believe this. He prayed to himself. He prayed. How could you believe that? Okay. Verse 14. So we're in Mark 15, verse 14. And Pilate said to them, why, what evil has he done? Pilate was thinking, did he kill somebody? Did he rob something? He didn't do any of that. But they screamed out exceedingly more. In addition, they hang him on the execution wood. The word cross is never used, kids. You better learn that. The church brought that junk up, okay? And Pilate, willing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas to them, and he delivered Yeshua after scourging, whipping, scourging him with rods, or maybe not whipping. Well, I believe, I don't think it was rods. Scourging means a whip, and Delitzsch translates it with whips, and surrendered him to the timber, Sulkinson's better, scourged him with rods. It should be whips, I would say. You don't scourge with a rod, to be hung on the wood. Okay. He was interested in satisfying the crowd because he didn't have a big army there. If the Jews rose up, he would have had a lot of trouble. And he was there to make sure the money came in every month, Like the mafia owned casinos in Vegas. They want that money every month, That's all Rome wanted, was that revenue coming in. Okay? They didn't want any trouble. And this seemed to be a dispute amongst the Jews that the Romans weren't very interested in. They had Apollo and Zeus and all their other schmuck idols, and they didn't care about this, If Yeshua was getting out there and saying, look, if you love God, you're going to grab a stake, a pole, a knife, a rock, and go kill the Romans. Whoa, that would have been different. But he never did anything like that. Okay. And the soldiers led him away inside the courtyard, which is the governor's hall. And they called together the whole troop. And they clothed him in purple, and making a joke that he was a king. Crimson, it says in Delitzsch. I think, I don't know which color it is. Probably the purple, but I'm not sure. And twisted a crown of thorn bushes. That would be uncomfortable. Delitzsch says a circular wreath of piercing thorns, so they would be sticking in his head perpetually there. And, the whole time it was on, very unpleasant. They placed it on him, and they began to salute him. Long live the King of the Jews, of the they said, let's read Delitzsch. They said, peace to you, O King of Yehudim, King of the Jews. Not Yehudah is Judah. Yehudim is the Jews. So, okay. And they struck his head with a reed cane. And Delitzsch is much better. It says, struck his head with a hollow stalk, spat their saliva upon him, and dropping on their knees, they bowed down low to him. Soldiers were playing with him. And when they had mocked him, they stripped the purple, so maybe it was purple, the purple, and it's crimson in Delitzsch. Okay, one or the other. They stripped the purple from him. I favor the purple. Put his own garment on him and led him out to hang him on the wood. And they forced a passerby coming from the field, Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his execution wood. And Delitzsch says it much better. Delitzsch says the father of Alexander and Rufus to lift and carry his timber stake. It was this. It was a piece like this. The hands were like this. This is not what it is. This is what the Pope wants you to think it is. Okay. The Reformation Church was the popes made their own Reformation Church because they were losing control of the people. They were doing everything in Latin, you know, sanctus, junk like that. And, you know, the people wanted to read the scriptures and this and that. So they gave them lousy translations from, they said, in Greek or from the Greek. Why would they? I mean, the Old Testament was in Hebrew. Why would Yeshua and the apostles write in Greek? I mean, come on. You know, Paul would write in Greek. He was a serious student for many years of the writings, the holy writings. Okay. And they brought him to the place Golgotha. Now, Delitzsch pronounces it as Golgotha. Golgotha is Golgotha, okay. Which is translated the place of the skull bone. Delitzsch says place of the human skull. See, they translate Delitzsch and they butcher him, and it sounds really bad, you know. But when you do your own translation of Delitzsch's work, he did a really good job. He didn't do a bad job. Neither did Salkinson. It's the King James, the NIV, the New American Standard, the Wycliffe, all of them are no good. They're all the same. They're all the same junk. The Wycliffe, which is back around 1300, is very much like the King James. And it's in a different, older English, though. But that's not changing the meaning. That's generally spelling and pronunciation. And they gave him wine mixed with bitter mire to drink, but he did not take it. Bitter gall is what it says in Delitzsch. And when they had hung him on the wood, they divided his garments, casting lots upon them. To see what every man should take. So they were splitting up everything he had, but what did he have? Not much. And it was the third hour of the day when they hung him on the wood. And the written text of his accusation was inscribed above the king of the Judeans, and Delit says the king of Yehudim. So Hamelech Yehudim, the king of the Jews. And guys, that was not happenstance. That was announcing who he really is. Okay. And with him, and how could you be the king's brethren, according to Yeshua, if you're a believer, you're his brethren, and yet you're not in Israel? I'd like to see you argue your way out of that one. And with him, but they'll reject me. They don't like the truth. And with him, they hung two violent robbers, one on his right and one on his left. Violent thieves, robbers, it's the same thing. Delit says thieves. Verse 28 is not in Salkinson's text. It's in Delich, and it reads, "And the written scripture was fulfilled, which stated, and he was numbered among the breakers of the law." Salkinson's was following the very early verses. So that's just the discrepancy between the both of them. Okay. 29. And those we know that because it tells us in the scripture they hung a thief on either side of them. So, it's not any doctrinal changes of any sort or anything like that. And those passing by reviled him, wagging their head and saying, "Aha, you who tear down the temple abode and build it in 3 days." Yeah, he said, that's because of what he said about the 3 days. Okay. "Deliver yourself and come down from the execution wood." And Delit says it more accurately, "descend from the timber stake." The churches in their approved translations, which they cook the books on, is where you get this cross. It's not in the text. It's missing. Okay. Likewise, also the head of the slaughter place, the ones that did the sacrifices, Levites, mocked among themselves with the scribes, said, "He delivered others, himself he cannot deliver." What's the matter with the growling? What's that? Oh, okay, hi. "Let the designated king, the king of Israel, down now from the wood, that we may see and believe." And those hung with him also insulted him. So even they were on their death cycle. They were getting ready to die. they were a dead man hanging on the stake, and they were even in that mode. They saw fit to mock Yeshua. Delit says, and even those staked beside him cast reproaches at him. Amazing, huh? 33. And when the 6th hour came, so this is a 3-hour time spread, there was darkness over the land until the 9th hour. 3 hours darkness in the daytime. When Jehovah does science, he knows how to do science. Okay, verse 34. And at the 9th hour, Yeshua cried out with a loud voice, saying, Elohi, Elohi, lama sabachthani, which is translated Elohim, my God. It's like an Elohim word. It's God belonging to me. This is what the Hebrew's saying. Okay, so you would say in English, my God, I guess. My God, why have you abandoned me? Delitzsch is very similar. It says, my God, for what reason have you forsaken me? You see, he lost sight of the fact that this has to finish to save everybody. And that was his mission, and he knew it. But even he, under all the stress it is, had problems in the flesh. He was flesh, along with being born from the Holy Spirit. He was still flesh. And the flesh stinks. And some of those standing by, when they heard it, said, look, he calls for Eliyahu, which is Elijah. Eliyahu is Elijah. Eliyahu HaNavi, Elijah the prophet. He wasn't doing that though. And one ran, but he knew him. There were brothers in heaven, still are brothers in heaven. You know, well, not exactly right this minute, but. And one ran, and the heaven part, Elijah's here now. And one ran and filled, he's in Israel, and filled a sponge full of vinegar, put it on a reed, and gave him to drink, saying, leave him alone, let us see if Eliyahu comes to take him down. See, they knew all about Elijah. He would come and teach them the Torah and stuff like that. Oh, and he will, and he already is, but he's going to teach them about Yeshua, and they're not going to like it. But they will go for it. Don't worry, God knows what he's doing. We don't know what God's doing because we can't understand it. Oh, you can have it spelled out, you can have the ABCs of it, but you don't really. God has an infinite IQ. You can't measure it. He's so smart, it's not measurable. It's so great. And we have a very, limited IQ, so we can't really understand. How can he communicate with everybody at the same time? I don't know, do you? Verse 37, and Yeshua uttered a loud cry and expired. And the the curtain of the temple that would separate the holies of holies was torn in two from the top to the bottom. Well, who tore it? Well, probably an angel, I guess, right? They couldn't see the angel. That was to show you there was nobody in the holies of holies. And if there was, I mean, they're just God's showing you it's no more, you know, secret or private. It's exposed. I guess he's saying it's exposed. There's nobody in there, no glory of God. And it's not a good sign. And whom the officers of the 100 who stood directly opposite him saw that he so cried out and expired, he said, "Truly this man was a son of God." And in the Delich, it's better. This is what he said with Delich. I like it better. In truth, this human was a son of God. That's much nicer, clearer. I told you he was in the flesh, right? Or he couldn't die. He had to be in flesh to die. The spirit didn't die. There were also women looking on from a distance, among whom were Miriam of Magdala and Miriam, the mother of James, the mother of Yaakov, that's Jacob, the small and of Joseph and Solomon. Okay. Delich comes through a little clearer with the names. 41. Who also, when he was in Galilee, followed him and labored for him, and many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem. There were women that traveled with Yeshua, and they took care of things like the offering money. They would buy food for themselves in Yeshua, so they would get food, and they would cook the food so he could have food. I think a lot of the times they stayed in somebody's house. You hear them talking, "I'm going to stay at your house." I believe most of the time, if not all the time, he was staying in somebody's house, but he didn't have his own house to lay his head. Okay? But how would he be sleeping out in the rain and the cold weather? You know, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So they took care of, cleaning the clothes, cleaning the house when they would leave, and all, different things, okay? 42. And when evening had already come, because it was the preparation day, which is the day before Sabbath rest, Joseph of Aramea, and honorable counselor of the assembly, who himself was waiting for the kingdom of God. See, they knew about the kingdom of God, okay? Came and went in boldly to Pilate, Delich says, who was himself leaning forward in expectation for the reign of God. I like Delich better, but I think you have to work with both of them to put together the New Testament, to get it kind of accurately more than either one of them. You take the best from both and put it together. Okay, and begging for the corpse of Yeshua. And Pilate wondered if he were already dead, and calling the officer of the 100, he questioned him whether he had been dead for long. And when he learned it from the officer of the 100, he granted the corpse to Joseph. And he bought time, what? He brought fine linen sheets, took him down, wrapped him in the linen sheet, and laid him in a sepulcher, a grave, a tomb, which was cut out of rock cliff, like a little cavey thing they made as a tomb, and rolled a stone against the opening of the sepulchre, or the burial tomb, or it says burial cave. Delitzsch uses those words, which I think are very good. And Miriam of Magdala and Miriam, the mother of Joseph, looked at where he was laid. Okay. Now we go to 16, verse 1. And when the Sabbath rest was past, Miriam of that the Sabbath rest is past, let's keep it simple, Saturday sundown, okay? that was when the Sabbath, it starts Friday, it's when it's a mixing of the day and the night to shadow along and stuff like that. We could call it sundown to keep it simple, and then sundown on Saturday it's over. So like in Israel, the restaurants and the discos and everything starts up Saturday and sundown. The buses start running, the cabs, everything. The city lights up. And Salome brought aromatic spices that they might come and anoint his body. And very early in the morning on the first day of the week. Now that's Yom Rishon, Sunday morning. Okay, but Sunday morning actually starts Saturday night in the Hebrew calendar. All right, now I'm confusing you. First day of the week, they came to the sepulchre, or the grave tomb, or the burial cave. I like burial cave. They came to the burial cave at the rising of the sun. So of course it was not Saturday night. It was Sunday in the a.m. in the morning, early. And they said among themselves, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the opening of the sepulchre?" The burial cave, all right. And when they didn't have the strength to do it, I assume, and when they looked up, they saw that the stone was rolled away, for it was exceedingly great. It was a great big stone. And entering into the burial cave, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were terrified. And he to them, "Do not be terrified. You are seeking Yeshua of Nazareth." There's no TH in Hebrew. There's no sound, so it's Nazareth. Nazareth, okay, Nazareth. Who was hung on the wood. He has risen. He is not here. Look at the place where they laid him. But go your way. Tell his disciples and Peter that he goes before you. Tell his disciples, the apostles, and Peter, that he goes before you into Galilee. Yay, Galilee! That's where I am. There you shall see him as he said to you. And they went out quickly and fled from the sepulchre, the burial cave, for trembling and amazement possessed them. Neither said they anything to anyone, for they were afraid. Now, I believe in the King James there's two young men. This is just telling us one. Now, when he arose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Miriam of Magdala, out of whom he had cast 7 foul spirits. And she went and reported it to those who had been with him, as they mourned and wept. So there were a few people mourning, but we read Zechariah 12, starting in verse 11. All of Jerusalem is mourning for him. You know, Israel's mourning for him, not just a few people, you know. And they, when they heard that he was alive and had been seen by her, they did not believe it. Although I believe he told it to them, they probably didn't understand it and didn't believe it, you know. So now I'm in verse 12. After that, he appeared in another form to 2 of them. See, spirit, as a spirit, he could change his form, and the supreme schmuck Satan is a spirit, and he could change his form too. He's a rather ugly-looking piece of garbage, but I'm sure he changes his image to the people. He wants to appear really cool to them or something. But his real appearance is pretty decrepit. And they walked and went. He looks like a very old man with greasy salt and pepper hair, and he's pretty disgusting. Walked and went into the field country, and his real garment is I don't know what you call a tunic. It's not open over here. It's got like a circle in the neck, and it comes down like a V, and it's like a thick gray cloth, like a sackcloth. Very unattractive. And he's an old man, greasy hair down to his shoulders. Nothing desirable about that supreme schmuck. And they went and reported it to the residue, the others, to the rest of the survivors, or, you know, the disciples. But they did not believe them either. verse 14. Afterward, he appeared to the 11 themselves as they sat eating, and he reproached them for their lack of belief. See, they didn't even believe he could do it. Now, after he did all these raising of the dead and everything, he raised the dead, but they didn't think he could raise himself. It's illogical, but I mean, it would make sense he could raise himself. But anyway, and hardness of heart, because they did not believe those who had seen him after he had arisen, lack of faith. And he said to them, go into all the world and proclaim the good tidings. And Delit says, go out into all the regions of the inhabitable world and cry out the good news to every created breathing thing, to every creature. Are we supposed to preach it to the animals? I don't think so. He who believed and is immersed shall be delivered. Immersed is the baptism, is you immerse in water. You don't sprinkle. Okay, that's what the immersed is talking about. Shall be delivered, but he who does not believe shall be condemned. And so the great commandment, go out to all the world and preach the true gospel. You got to have the real gospel. So when you're going out preaching the junk gospel, that's not it. And these signs shall accompany those who believe. In my name they shall cast out foul spirits. Deliches, they shall drive out evil spirits. I like that, drive out evil spirits. That's good. Cast out, drive out. Okay, foul spirit, I would rather say an evil spirit, but foul spirit seems to do the job too. They shall speak with new tongues. Solkinson says they shall speak in newly formed tongues. They're both good. Verse 18, they shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly poison, it shall not hurt them. Solkinson says they shall grasp creeping snakes in their hands, and if they swallow a liquid of deadly venom, it will execute no injury upon them. Deliches will not hurt them. I like not hurt them. It's more simplex. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. Delich, place their palms upon weak bodies, people, and they shall be healed. Yeah. Verse 19. So then, after the Lord had spoken to them he was taken up into the skies and sat down at the right hand of God. And so it was that the Lord, after talking with them, was carried upward into the heights of the sky, and he took his seat at the right hand of God. And they went out and proclaimed everywhere the Lord working with them and confirming the word through the signs that accompanied it. Salkinson says, they departed and cited and cried out the message in every quarter, while the Lord operated alongside them, and I like that, alongside them, and verified the spoken word through the wonder dash tokens that followed his track. Confirming the word with signs following. But if you're not preaching the real word, you're not going to have signs following. And with these translations, that's why you're not seeing signs and wonders. One of the reasons. He's not confirming a twisted translation. No. I'm going to take a break for a second. I'll be back. Not a second. Be quick, though. Take more than a second. So we get to see what the scriptures really look like. And you see this business of, they were done in Greek, that you see that's replacement theology. They're telling you that, God's finished with the Jews, and it wasn't in Hebrew, this is finished with the Jews. Think about it. Israel's going to be saved. They want the New Testament. God's going to want them to have it. And it's going to be in Greek, huh? Not Hebrew? That makes no sense, does it? All right, let me look at the live stream. 2 chapters is about all I could bang out in a day. See if there's any prayer requests or questions in the live stream. We don't have a lot of action in the chat. Okay. There's 3 Hebrew New Testaments I know of. One is Salkinson, 1880s. Salkinson, Ginsburg. Salkinson died and Ginsburg edited it. That's Jewish. They're Jewish guys. Butch was Jewish, I believe. And he did one also. Delitzsch, I believe, sourced his from what? I can't. The Greek Codex Sinaiticus. And Salkinson reverse translated it. So they both did it different ways, and you need both of them. You put it together and you get it. Now there's a third Hebrew Bible that there's some Bible Society in Israel. It's the Espot Bible Society, and they made a translation of the New Testament that I don't know, a 9th grader could understand or something like that. And it's not very good. It's like the Living Bible or something. It's not a, it's a book about the Bible more than a Bible. So it's not a very good idea, to use that. I wouldn't. I have a copy of it. I bought about 30, 40 years ago or something like that. The last time I touched it was years and years ago. I don't use it for anything. Salkinson is the one. In the UK there is or used to be a Hebrew Publication Society thing, and they were distributing Salkinson's Hebrew New Testament. When I was in Israel many, many years ago in the 90s, I wrote them a letter and said, I'm in Israel, and I understand you have New Testaments in Hebrew, could you send me one or send me some so I could distribute it? I don't remember what my exact words were. And they sent me 2 boxes of these big boxes. So I had to go to the post office and pick them up. And they were, man, I could barely handle them. They were so heavy. They were full of these. I couldn't give that many of them away. So I don't remember what happened to them. I went back to America for a while, a long while, and I probably took 1 or 2 with me. I don't know where they go. I might have one. I don't know. There's a political announcement they sent me. What does it say? It's some sort of a rally they want me to go to or something. I don't know. Don't believe I'm going to be going. Guarantee I'm not going. Not going. What does this say? Oh. Okay. So I hope you're enjoying these translations. I to put a book together and write the translation is above and beyond what this Kohanim is able to do right now, of course, of age and physical problems. I can't do it. It's enough for me. I gotta work on doing the broadcast before a few hours, doing the broadcast, and then I'm shot. You know, you get tired from here to here. You don't get tired in your arms, your body, or your legs. It's up in your head because you're thinking all the time. And that knocks me out, and that's it. And then the Lord usually doesn't want me to do any Bible work the rest of the day. He doesn't want me going there. No. So I don't. I just don't. All right. Before I forget, pray for me. When you get old, the muscles in your throat go bad, and you start coughing. Your throat gets dry. You swallow the wrong way, stuff like that, and you start coughing. Pray that I don't keep getting that. Last night I was going to sleep and it hit me hard, but I let my mouth and my throat get dry. I don't know what went wrong. But I had to sleep on my side, which I don't normally do, because if I slept on my back, I would start coughing for a few hours, and then that went away. I don't know, but please pray for that. I appreciate it. All right, let's get a prayer out for everybody. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers and their household. I pray that we have your peace, safety, protection, joy, and shalom, peace, and calm, rest. And I pray that we have strength, stamina, and endurance. And I pray we have your healing and recuperative power to flow through us, and we don't get sick, ill, or hurt, or injured. And I pray for our animals and pets and us to be safe, secure, and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I pray that if any of us need housing or change our housing situation or shelter, that it would be provided for us. And I pray that if any of us need a job, we get a good job. And if any of us need a different, better job, we find that also. And I pray if we need clients and customers, we get good clients and customers. And I pray we all have adequate finances and then some extra. I pray for the translations to be good. I pray that everybody can understand the Bible better. I pray I could do better videos. I pray the gifts of the Spirit operate in us with an emphasis on faith, wisdom, and discernment. And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Now I'm going to do spiritual warfare. It'll be a little bit different, okay? See, that's the dry throat thing starting up. Okay, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father Jehovah, I throw out of any of these people, you know, that I just covered, all of us, family, whatever, that have an unclean spirit in them. The unclean spirits are out of these people immediately, never to return unto them again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and I submit that to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And if there's any witchcraft, if the sorcery aimed, directed at targeting any of us, these people, and these people, it's cast null and void for all time, shall never return in the same form or in a similar form ever. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And if the enemy throws any darts at us, they miss us. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Now you can be agreeing with all this if you're a believer. And I pray that for me and my wife, all the true believers and our households, that we don't receive from any unclean spirits, any visions, any dreams, get any Bible teachings or insights, or get fooled or confused by the unclean spirits or those serving the unclean spirits for all time. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm out. Thanks, guys.